Right, this thing is doing my head in. Right, here we go. Come on, come on. Right, this workbench is all right actually. It wasn't expensive. It's, I don't know, a couple £100, something like that. 800 kilo lift, 800 or 1,000, something like that. I don't know. It's somewhere around there. But it's big enough for what I want to do. But it's not massive enough that it just takes up too much room, and it makes a massive difference being able to lift the bike up. The only trouble is, where is it? This stupid thing. Right, this is the chock. Normally bolts on up here, and it's junk. Normally bolts on in one of these 3 holes here, but it's junk because it's too tall, and it's horrible. The tops of this are literally on the discs. So if I end up with a bike that's got bigger discs on it, that's it, I can't use this. And it's a proper faff, because you've got to get the bike up on there, and then you somehow got to hold it whilst you come around and you do this up, and then you're only gripping the front wheel. So so you have to tie it down. So you're now walking around the bike, holding on the handlebar, trying to do your straps up, and then as you ratchet it down, it does that first, and then you track this one, and it does that again. It's junk. Stupid. This is your option. Ken with it. That's worse than this is. So I'm changing it. Just because I've finished doing ASBO now. Well, for now. There's still an awful lot to get done on that. But I'm just going to change this to try and make it a little bit more user friendly, because 9 times out of 10 it's only me in here. So doing all this stuff on your own just makes it awkward. This is what I have in the back of the van. Why won't that work? Why won't it work? I'd say it's probably going to have to overhang a bit. That's the only thing. But essentially, you have it like that, you wheel your bike in, it goes forward and snugs up against here. So then you've got 3 points of contact, pretty much 180 degrees old around the wheel at the front. And that's it, that's all you need. You can just wheel your bike in, do that, and it don't fall over. And you can push it about and everything else, and it still don't fall over. So why can't I shove that on there? Where's my tape measure? Right, so from the very back edge of the tyre, as in the vertical bit of the tyre, it's about 210, which puts it about there. So essentially this is going to need to go about there. So it is going to overhang. It is going to overhang, isn't it? However, I do have a couple of bolt holes that are there, just in the right place. Well, near enough in the right place. I think what I'm going to do, just for now, is I'm going to drill some holes in this and I'm just going to bolt this to it. Ultimately, I'm going to make something that looks an awful lot like that, and it'll have a thing that comes out the front here to replace this, and I'll shove that on here instead. I've got a welder, I've got the steel, I could do that. But for now, I'm just going to bolt this down, just because it'll be better. Right then. Oh yeah! No more cocking about with straps. That looks alright, doesn't it? Oh, you can tell she's been out in the rain. Look at all this. Do it clean. Right, I'm happy with that. I might as well just adjust the chain whilst I'm here. Oh yeah, GIXIT's back. It's been a while. Just adjusted the chain on Asbo. Yeah, it was just a little bit loose, I think. Nothing major. Right. Well, first thoughts are she's a little bit grubby. Oh, you've been neglected, haven't you? Just sitting in the corner, all quiet and stuff. So yeah, she has been neglected. I haven't done anything on her since lockdown started. And it's time to get back on the old girl. So, what I'm going to start doing is I want to have a crack at this oil cooler surround. Where is it? We've got this oil cooler. It's going to go on here, but I want it to look nicer than that. So we're going to make up some sort of surround to cover up all the nastiness and make it look a little bit more elegant. Hopefully in keeping with the bike and stuff as well. But before all that happens, I really need to have a chat with Steve, and I'll definitely need to give her a clean. If he sees her looking like this, I'll get a punch square in the face. Oh look, grinding dust and smuts and smoo and just nastiness. Got a little bit of flash rusting coming as well, especially on here. I'll be sorting that out as well then. Right, so that's what we're doing. Right, so today is Sunday, and I ain't really doing much now. I just wanted to sort that thing out because it's just a massive pain, trying to do it all on your Todd, and it's not having it. Looks ugly as sin. It does stick out, but I've kind of proved it kind of works. So all that will happen at some point is, because I can still unbolt this and shove it in the van and use it like I normally do, but you don't have to go in the van very often. But I will make something that fits in on here properly, and it will just stay on the bench, and I can stick that out the way, and that way I can use it in the van if I need to without any cocking about. So that's going to happen. Don't know when, but that'll do for now. So today's Sunday. I think Thursday, Steve-O is coming down to get his girls again. So he's going to stop off in here. We'll arrange for him to come down and say howdy doodies and all the rest of it. I am going to get it cleaned up before he gets here though. We'll have a bit of a recap and decide what we're doing next. Because, you know, I haven't worked on her in ages. I just need to sort of, you know, freshen things up and remember where we was headed and what was happening next. Oil cooler is going to be next, and then I think we were talking exhaust systems. But either way, I need to have a chat with him and make sure we're both on the same page. So, fast forward to Thursday. Well, that should save me getting a punch in the face. Oh, she was grubby though. It has to be said. It's amazing the amount of dust and that grinding produces. You know, just like with the angle grinder and flappy disc or whatever you're using. It goes everywhere. Like even up under here was dusty. Don't get that one. All I tend to do is like a squirt of WD-40 or that ACF 50 or whatever. Yeah, obviously blow it all off and get all the dust off. get a quick wipe down and then squirt this all over it and just give it a rub. Only reason for doing it really, everything in here gets covered in oil on a regular basis, just to stop it going rusty and all that sort of stuff. It just leaves that sort of thin, sort of protective film of oil on it, and it just helps, basically, helps keep things clean, so you don't sort of start degrading and all that malarkey. So that's literally all she's had, but she does look a lot better for it, has to be said. The other person who's coming is Simon Rolls, Mr. Suspension. Basically, he's got all the gear to do the rear shock on Asbo. He's got spring compressors and all that other stuff, and I ain't got them, so I'm just going to get him to do the rear shock for me. So he's going to come down and pick it up. He can have his DB meter back as well, because that's been kicking around for ages. But what I'm going to do is to keep anything to do with Asbo, I'm going to keep separate to GIXIT. So all you're going to see in these videos is the work that goes on GIXIT, basically. If I do anything on Asbo, that'll be a separate video in its own playlist. Just that way you can keep track and you won't get confused. Right, we're in. She looks respectable again now, doesn't she? Yeah, I'm liking that. Well, you've been gassing, mate.
Well, sorry, but they don't allow me out very often in public, and so I have to make the most of every opportunity I get.
Sarah's law is a pain, isn't it?
Hmm?
Sarah's law is a pain.
Oh.
Right. Shock.
Shocking.
He's knackered.
Shock.
Right then, just pulled the shock out the back end of Asbo. Steve-O's in the house. Give us a wave.
Hello.
Simon's here as well, but he's the one that looks like a scene out of Crime Watch, because I'm going to pixelate his head because he don't like being on camera. Anyway, rear shock is not in a good way at all. Let me show you. Right, so this is the stock shock out the back of Asbo. It's nice to see they removed it before painting it. Bump stop's knackered and it looks crusty as hell. And this, according to I had a chat with Si, and apparently this is like non-serviceable item. You can't split it, or there's no provision to regas it or anything else. So it works, but it works slowly and it needs to get replaced. So we need to replace it. Right, we've just been just gone online and had a look at it. A few people was mentioning the Honda CBR 600RR rear shock will fit in one of these. You do have to trim a bit off the bottom of the battery tray, but there's nothing behind it. It's not like you're trimming holes out, and it's got a guard to stop all the rubbish coming off the back wheel and hitting the shock. So that's easy enough, and that's just to fit a reservoir on. But apparently the rear shock off a Honda CBR 600RR from 2006 is 1mm different, and we double checked it by having a look. We just did a Google search, and there's this whole list which I will put a link into in the description, which has got the lengths of all the different shocks for different bikes, different years, different models, all that sort of stuff. And the Honda shock is 1mm different in length, which is fine. That's absolutely fine, and it is pretty much a direct swap. So I've got one coming from Ireland. Don't know how long it's going to take, but until then, Asbo is staying on the bench. Yeah. But anyway, Steve-O's here. Let's have a chat about GIXIT. Right, that was a bit of a day wasted. Well, I haven't seen Steve-O in like forever. Well, that's what it seems like anyway. And I really wanted to get on with this. And we just didn't. We just ended up shooting the breeze and chatting and catching up and everything else, which is a good thing. You know, you can chat on the phone and everything else, but it ain't the same. Told him what I wanted to do with this. Took about 10 minutes. He just agreed, and I thought, right, let's crack on with it. And then we just ended up talking about all sorts of other stuff. So more of that in a minute, but I want to start getting a plan together for this. Right, I've got a rough idea of how I'm going to build it, but never having done one, it's going to be interesting. Right, Where's my pencil gone? Right, I know the angle's going to be a bit funny from where you are, but oil cooler is going to need to sit about like that, something like that. The problems that we've got is that it's wider than the frame. I can't really go up or down any more than this really, because the height of this apparently is quite important, so I want to keep it basically where it is. But it's wider than the frame and it's just ugly as hell. And what I want to do is to put some sort of a cover around it just to make it look a bit nicer. So we're obviously coming out to here. Let's see, where's the midpoint? Right, so it's about to like that. About like that. So it obviously sticks out past the frame a little bit. So it's going to need to be sculpted back into this. I don't really want to restrict airflow around any of it if I can help it. But we do have a hole at the top, which I want to cover up. So it's going to have to sort of start from up here somewhere, come down to the front, maybe even just a little bit beyond it, so it's got like a lip into it. And then these sticky out corners is going to need to be blended back into the frame, and I'm thinking I might use that as my line. So it's going to have to curve around to sort of half tube on here, I would think. It's going to have to curve down from the top to meet this leading edge, and then this corner somehow is going to have to be blended in so it kind of comes up and the top of it will follow this line. So it's a bit of a weird shape. And I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to do it. Craig did, on his ET, he did a surround for his all quite. It looked really good actually. It's quite boxy, but it suits the bike down to a T because it's quite a boxy looking thing. I think this needs to have a few curves in it, if I'm honest. Just because everything about the Bandit and GIXIT is kind of, you know, the frame and the tank and the way it all goes, it's not as boxy as an ET, so we need a little bit more shape into it. But what I'm thinking is if I start what I want to do is for this to go into the back of it, and then some sort of fixture to clamp it all in place in the back, so when you mount it onto the bike you don't actually see any covers or anything else. I think with his he slid it in through the bottom, or the top, I don't know, I think it was the bottom, and that could work, but there's some stuff I want to do on the bottom of it just because of where the exhausts come out and everything. So we're going to be changing it up a little bit, but I think if I was to do a box that went around the outside to start off with, we'll have some cutouts, obviously for the hoses to hook up, and then it's kind of narrower on the edge than it is in the core. So where the sides of the box come up, I'm probably going to get them to come in a bit, so at the front, just so it kind of catches on there, so it'll be like a 3-stage bend to it. So it'll come up, come along, and then it'll go back again, so it's resting on all those fins. Right. Okay, I think I'm getting my head around this now. That's junk. Right, so if this is the... Yeah. Right, I think I'm getting my head around it now. So the black Sharpie is obviously the frame. This is the bit that we're looking to build. This is just where the exhausts are going to come. So I think what I first need to do, there's going to be the main box that this will sit in, but it's going to wrap around it as well and come further back. Thing is, it needs to be a completely, yeah, it can't just be sheet metal, it's got to be like a 3D thing. Partly because it will give it strength, partly because it will stop water and everything else getting into it and just rotting the hell out of it. But it's mostly from the strength side of stuff. and giving it that shape is what's going to do it. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to start out with a backing plate, which I can make to sit inside the frame, like up the front bit, and then I'm just going to box this in to kick off with. The side bits are going to be slightly longer, because obviously as the frame tube comes down here, I want to get to about half the tube. So I'm just going to make them over long, and then on the front I also need to have that bent in edge, so when you slide this into it, it kind of catches it, and that'll be essentially its front mount. We'll put some rubber bungs or something in there just to shock mount it and stuff as well, so it's going to be slightly oversized. But I think that's going to be the way to do it. I can bend up the returns on Brenda the Bender, that's not a problem. But given that I'm going to have holes in here, I'm going to have 2 bends in each side, and then I've got the top. I'm probably going to do it in 4 different pieces, stick them all together and weld them in the right places. And then any of the excess I've got hanging off the back here, I can just trim down the suit. That'll be fine. If I can get that actually onto this back plate, which marries up with the frame, then it's just a case of figuring out how I'm going to sort of sculpt in the edges of it. But at least I would have a solid frame to go by. What material have I got? Right, I've got what looks like 1mm and 1.8mm steel. I ain't gonna need like the chunky stuff on this, not at all. I think I'm going to do it out of 1mm, because by the time it gets its shape in it and it's a 3D object, that's going to give it a hell of a lot of strength anyway. So that'll be okay, that'll be alright. Bum bum bum. Yeah, I think that'll work. Can't see why I wouldn't. It is going to be a case though of get the backing plate and the box built, and then I'm just going to have to start ad-libbing it and monkeying about, I think, until I can get it to look the way I want it to. But I think that'll work. And this should be nice and secure as well. We'll have access for these, because what I'm going to do is where all this comes down and gets boxed in, I'm just going to cut out some sort of chamfers in it. So there's going to be 2 smaller ones to gain access to these, and then in the middle here we're going to have the exhausts. So it's going to kind of do that, and the bottom will obviously be curved down like this as well. So there could be some interesting shapes going on. It's going to be a pain to build, I think, but slow and steady and we should get there. Right, that's it then. So I've got 1.5, which is the chunky stuff, this stuff, and I've got 1mm. So I think the backing plate that goes up to the frame and the box that this actually sits in, I'm going to make out this thicker stuff. And then where I'm filling in the shapes and getting it all, you know, nice curves and all that sort of stuff, that's going to be done with the thinner stuff just because it's easier to work, I think. Until I actually get into it, I've got no idea how I'm going to face all this off. But at least I know what I'm doing, and I explained it all to Steve how I want it to look, or how I think it should look, and he agrees. So the end result, we know what it's going to be. I just don't know how I'm going to make it yet. Well, bits of it I do. All this bit I'm not so sure of, but we'll see how we get on with that. So that should be good. That's the next job. That's what I'm going to be doing during the week. So that's going to be the next video. As far as Asbo goes, there's another shot coming. She's going to be in her own playlist. When that rocks up, you know, we'll have a chat about it, we'll fit it, we'll go out for room, we'll, you know, set sag and all that stuff. So she's coming. But essentially, that's my daily driver. So, you know, I'll probably put, what, 200 miles on her now? Something like that? 250? And it's just horrible, so it needs to change. Oh, the other thing is I've got this. My mount is all sorted and it's on the lid and it don't move or anything. So you will be coming with me, don't worry about that. We'll show you what's what and get some thoughts. The other thing worth noting is, if you remember, we were talking about Mark, enigmatic engineer, very clever fella, total nerd when it comes to GSXRs. And he has got some proper toys, but he really knows his stuff, and he was working up some geometry numbers and all this kind of stuff for us. What with the pandemic, you know, COVID-19, whatever, and some other stuff that's been going on, he has proper had his hands full, so we've not heard a peep out of him until recently. When Steve Owen's side was down, I was voicing concerns about what I think is going to need to change. Just looking at it and comparing measurements off that to ASBO, I think we've got some fundamental things that needs to be changed. And that largely is where the conversation went when those two was down here. We spent bloody hours talking about it. But Simon Rolls has gotten in touch with Mark, and Mark has come back with a whole load of observations and stuff. So he has been working, he's just had his hands full, and you know, well, as far as priority goes, family comes first, as we all know. So he's been dealing with stuff there. But we ain't far off it with what our thoughts were. I'm hoping either today, tomorrow, I might get to have a conversation with him, and I can tell him what my thoughts are and all that other stuff. Steve-O is going to send me all the numbers that we sent to Mark as well, so I've got them in front of me and I can see what's what. And we can start getting some numbers to actually build the flaming thing too. At the minute, all this sort of stuff is just cosmetic. That don't make it handle and ride right. It's the stuff that he's doing that's going to do that. And it is massively, massively important. You can have a bike that looks the part, it looks quite trick, and you know, it's got a nice stance to it, and it's low, and if it handles like a shopping trolley, what's the point? So it needs to be right, basically. But anyway, more on that as it comes through. This is the next job, and I'm starting on it during the week. Sorry we didn't get to do much today. It's just been one of those, I haven't seen the boys in ages, and it was just a massive catch up. We are all on the same page. We know exactly what it is we're going to be doing. Just need to get off my butt and do it now. So that's what I'm doing. We're on GIXIT. That's it. I want to crack on and get that done. Anyway, that's how I'm going to leave it today. Thank you ever so much for joining us. Really do appreciate it. And we'll see you again next time. Laters!